The night the whole company would remember forever began like any other polished corporate celebration, all marble floors and champagne flutes, a charity gala thrown on the top floor of Ardent Dynamics to celebrate record-breaking profits and the arrival of their new CEO, Evelyn Cross, a woman known in business magazines for her ice-cold decisions and ruthless efficiency. And as the orchestra played softly beneath crystal chandeliers, executives laughed too loudly, investors compared watches. And no one noticed the janitor quietly mopping near the service corridor, because no one ever did, except tonight. That janitor was Daniel Reyes, a single father who measured his life in night shifts and school lunches, a man whose world revolved entirely around his daughter Sophia, the only reason he worked 3 jobs and slept 4 hours a night. And Sophia was supposed to be at home with a neighbor, but the sitter had canceled last minute, and Daniel had no choice but to bring her with him. Tucking her into a small office nearby with a coloring book and strict instructions not to move, and for a while everything was fine, until it wasn't, because as speeches began and applause echoed through the building, Daniel heard a sound that froze his blood, a faint, broken gasp coming from down the hall, the kind of sound a parent recognizes instantly even in a storm, and he dropped his mop and ran, heart pounding, shoes squeaking on polished floors as he burst into the office to find Sophia. On the carpet, her face pale, her chest rising and falling in terrifying, shallow jerks, her lips tinged blue as she clawed weakly at her throat, and in that moment the world narrowed to one point of panic as Daniel dropped to his knees, lifting her gently, whispering her name again and again, trying to remember the emergency steps the doctor had explained years ago when Sophia was diagnosed with severe asthma. But fear erased everything except one thought: she can't breathe. And with his daughter limp in his arms, Daniel ran straight into the gala, shattering the illusion of perfection like glass hitting marble. Conversations died mid-sentence, champagne spilled, and heads turned as the janitor burst through the doors holding a struggling child, his voice breaking as he shouted for help. Security moved instinctively to block him, irritation flashing across the faces of executives who saw only disruption, not desperation, and someone muttered that this wasn't the place for staff problems, but Daniel didn't hear them, because Sophia's breathing was getting worse, her eyes rolling back, and when security grabbed his arm he screamed the words that would echo through the room long after the music stopped: "She can't breathe." And for a split second, no one moved, frozen between discomfort and disbelief, until a sharp voice cut through the chaos, calm but commanding, ordering everyone to step back. And that voice belonged to Evelyn Cross, the CEO herself, who had been standing on the stage moments earlier accepting praise, and now she was striding toward them in heels worth more than Daniel's monthly rent. But her face had changed, the practiced corporate mask gone, replaced by something raw and focused, and as she knelt in her designer dress on the polished floor beside Daniel, ignoring the gasps of the crowd, she took one look at Sophia and snapped into action, asking quick, precise questions about her condition, her history, when the symptoms started, while simultaneously pulling out her phone and calling emergency services, putting it on speaker and barking clear instructions. And then, to the shock of everyone watching, she took off her jacket, rolled up her sleeves, and helped Daniel position Sophia properly, guiding his shaking hands, reminding him to stay calm because his daughter needed him steady, her voice firm but compassionate. And something extraordinary happened in that moment, because the room full of powerful people watched their untouchable CEO kneeling on the floor beside a janitor, treating him like an equal, like a father, not like invisible staff. And when Sophia's breathing worsened despite everything, Evelyn made a decision that would ripple through the company for years. She ordered the building cleared, told the orchestra to stop, instructed security to open every elevator and clear a direct path for the ambulance, overriding protocol without hesitation. And when paramedics arrived, she went with them, riding down in the elevator, holding Sophia's hand alongside Daniel, whispering encouragement to a terrified child who barely knew her. And as they rushed to the hospital, employees stood stunned in the empty ballroom, realizing they had just witnessed something that no quarterly report could ever capture. And at the hospital, while doctors worked, Evelyn stayed, refusing to leave until she knew Sophia would survive. And when the doctor finally came out with a nod and the words, "She's stable," Daniel collapsed into a chair, sobbing openly, burying his face in his hands, the weight of years of exhaustion and fear crashing down all at once. And that's when Evelyn did something no one would ever forget. She sat beside him, not speaking, just being there. And when he finally looked up, ashamed of his tears, she told him quietly that being a parent was the hardest leadership role there was. And the strongest people were often the ones no one saw, and the next morning, the story spread through the company like wildfire, not because of gossip, but because Evelyn called an all-hands meeting and told the truth. She told them about the janitor who loved his daughter enough to bring her to work rather than leave her unsafe, about the night profit didn't matter, image didn't matter, only a child's life did, and then she announced changes that shocked everyone. Immediate healthcare coverage upgrades for all employees regardless of position, emergency childcare support, paid family leave expanded beyond industry standards, and a personal scholarship fund for Sophia's future education. And when she asked Daniel to stand, the room erupted into applause, not the polite kind, but the kind that comes from genuine respect. And Daniel, still in his janitor's uniform, stood there overwhelmed, realizing that his lowest moment had somehow become the moment the entire company changed. And as the chapter of that night closed, one truth remained crystal clear, that sometimes the most powerful words in a room aren't spoken from a stage, but whispered in desperation by a father holding his child, and that what the CEO did next didn't just shock the whole company, it reminded them what leadership, humanity, and courage truly looked like. And if this story moved you, inspired you, or reminded you that real heroes walk among us every day, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more powerful stories that restore faith in humanity, because the next one might change the way you see the world too.